undeserving individual. And He gave me a most satisfying and fulfilling business. In my wildest dreams, I would never have pursued managing or owning a roller rink, which during my youth it gave me such great joy. I remembered back over 25 years being with my friend who was a Christian. And my friend, he shared his faith with me. At my age of 16, I gave my life to Jesus. Now, years later, I had finally came into His comforting direction. I also had a peace in my spirit knowing I was now where God wanted me to be. Nancy and Susie's home had been in Baltimore, Maryland, as they had moved to Colorado to start a new life. A time came when Susie turned 19 years of age, and after graduating from high school, she decided to return to Baltimore. Nancy, she became very distressed over Susie now living 1,800 miles away. Nancy informed me that she was going to move back to Denver. After repeated discussions, I eventually had came to realize that I had a choice of staying in Lamar alone or to return to Denver with Nancy. Rather than to again experience the hurt and pain of another broken marriage, I was now willing to do whatever was necessary to preserve our marriage. To leave Lamar, where God had placed me, it grieved my spirit. And I knew the road that lay ahead would possibly be a road of regret. With my marriage being my first priority, I placed my trust in returning to Denver with Nancy. I began making plans to return to Denver. After my success with the roller rink in Lamar, I felt confident in thinking I could succeed in building and operating another rink in the Denver area. For the following 6 months, I commuted weekly between Lamar and Denver, laying the foundations for our new rink. I made a large deposit on an option for commercial land located in a suburb of Denver. A firm of architects and surveyors were commissioned, and blueprints for the land development were put into place. I went before the city council for zoning approval. Everything seemed to be falling into place, including the verbal commitment by an area bank for the financing. We hired a rink manager for the Lamar rink and moved to Denver. After selling our home in Lamar, we made a deposit on a new home. At no time did I sense God's peace concerning my decisions, as I knew I was placing my trust in myself and not God. I was wrong to place our trust in the world or ourselves and not in God is always wrong. Overnight, the financial climate changed, whereas interest rates dramatically increased and loans became scarce. I was unable to obtain the bank loan. Over the following months, I tried to salvage the project, but eventually the deposit on the land was forfeit, and all the money and time I had spent became fruitless. As the pressures on our lives were heavy, Nancy, she began asking me if we could move to Baltimore so she could reunite with Susie and other members of her family. After many discussions and accepting what would then become a foreclosure on our Denver home, I finally agreed. I was willing to relocate to Baltimore and make repairs to our marriage, as I knew that our marriage was in trouble. The truth was, no matter how I felt about preserving our marriage, Nancy's commitment and respect for me was gone. We moved to Baltimore, Maryland, but within 1 month, I packed my personal belongings into my car and I returned to Colorado. I remember that 3-day journey on Interstate I-70 from Baltimore to Denver. The devastation I felt and my continual sobbing. As a Christian, to again fail in marriage was hard to understand. There is no way I can describe the grief and the loss I felt. As I had believed returning to Denver, it was my only option. The only comfort and hope in my life was the unconditional love that I knew God had for me. Shortly thereafter, the Denver home went into foreclosure, and we sold the Lamar roller rink. Now, many, many years have passed. I am again a divorced man. I have failed many times in living the life that I believe God desires for all of us to live. I thank God that my salvation is not based upon my works or my performance in life, but only on what Jesus Christ did for me on the cross. Living a Christian life means that although you continue to fail and stumble, you have the grace of His unconditional love. Although my life is different now, God continues to bless me with His peace, His guidance, and His assurance. I continue to seek to do God's will in my life, and that is why I'm here, to encourage others of the importance of sharing personal testimony by sharing those things that God has done for me in my own life.